Then I went again.
Well, he said that,
Spiritual dimension.
How precious and how
unimportant the world is.
became a family.
Everyone else was astonished.
In the late 1950s, Rabbi Meshulam Weiss was recently married and living in Miami, Florida.
When my wife became pregnant with our first son, first child, she developed a condition where she was literally crippled on all of the joints of her leg. Her knees, her ankles started to swell up with terrible blisters, and she was in terrible, excruciating pain, couldn't walk. Went to one doctor after another doctor, no one knew what to do. They put her in a hospital, they did a biopsy, they sent it away to the to Philadelphia, to the Army Corps pathology, and they came back with a diagnosis that it's Weber-Christian's disease. So we came home. It was on Friday, it was Erev Shabbos when she came out of the hospital. So I called up my doctor, who happened to be a Shem Shabbos doctor, Dr. Makovsky. I said to him, Dr. Makovsky, if it was your daughter, what would you do? He said, I would take her to New York, and he had the name of a doctor on Fifth Avenue. I said, could you make an appointment? He says, yeah, he calls up the doctor, makes an appointment for us for Monday, and we went from his office straight to the airport, got on an airplane, flew to New York. My parents were living in Rockaway, and we got to Erev Shabbos, and we spent Shabbos by my parents, and Monday morning we went to see this doctor. And I brought along the slides of my wife's biopsy. So he looks at the slides and looks at my wife and goes to examination, and he says, look, he says, your wife has an extremely, extremely rare disease, and I don't know anything about it. I don't know what to tell you. There is one doctor, his name is Dr. Gutman, and he wrote a paper on this disease. He's the only one that I know of, he says, who has any knowledge about it. The problem is he doesn't have a practice. He's a professor. He teaches medicine to doctors in Mount Sinai Hospital in Manhattan. So the only advice I can give you is take your wife to the hospital and check her in the ward and let her lay in bed there, and eventually he'll make the rounds with the other doctors, so he'll look at her, and that way he'll see. I said, thank you very much, and went back to my mother's house. And as soon as we got home, I called 770, and I spoke to Label Groner, and I told him what the doctor said. I get a phone call, and it's from the doctor that we had seen. And he says to me, he says, Rabbi Weiss? I said, yeah. He says, I don't know who you know in New York, but I'm in my office, and I just got off the phone. Dr. Gutman called me, and he said to me, did a Rabbi Weiss from Miami come to see you today with his wife? And I said, yeah. He said, well, tell him to be in my office at Mount Sinai tomorrow morning. I want to see her. He says, I don't know who you know. I said, well, I know who I know. Thank you very much. And next day we went to the doctor, and he more or less confirmed what the first doctor had said, that it's a very rare disease. They don't know much about it. He gave her a shot of ACTH and relieved some of the pain, and that was it. The shot he gave took away the swelling on her legs. And then we spent the rest of the summer in New York, and then when we were going back home, we made arrangements. I called up to have yichidus with the Rebbe. This was our second yichidus. And the whole time we were there, we were discussing what the doctor said. And the Rebbe says to us, he says, you should know, he says to my wife, what you have is a result of the change of hormones that's going on in your body due to your pregnancy. And it's nothing to be concerned about. It's not life-threatening at all. It's the hormones that are doing it. He says, and probably by the time you go into your 5th month and for your life, they'll go away by themselves. And you should know that every time you become pregnant, it's going to happen again. You're going to break out in these boils, but they'll go away after 3 or 4 months. And my wife went on to have 15 children, Kanahara, and we had a secret recipe between us. And she would say to me, Meshulam, I'd say, yeah. She says, I have a bump on my ankle. I'd say, Mazel tov, Mazel tov.